Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a very special edition of The Space Show. I am your host, Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Frost, joined by Admiral Kerry Jackson and Ensign Tony Eccles.
Hi.
We've got someone else on the bridge. Alert.
I had the day off, so I decided to put on my ensign uniform and come hang out.
Happy Thanksgiving week, everybody.
Yes.
And this week, in the spirit of preserving the longevity of extinct Star Trek 4.
Oh,
Star
okay.
Trek 4.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Say, don't give up, Rebecca.
1986 Star Trek 4 The Voyage Home. To save Earth from an alien probe, Admiral James T. Kirk and his fugitive crew go back in time to San Francisco in 1986 to retrieve the only beings who could communicate with it, humpback whales. Now,
Naturally.
for years and years and years and years that I have heard you guys talk about this movie and describe it as the whale movie, the one with the whales.
Yeah.
I was over here thinking space whales. So when space whales
That's a
show
different
up
Star
in
show.
yeah, when they show up in Star Wars, I'm like, oh, crazy! Did they rip this off from Star Trek?
No, hang on a minute.
Yeah. No, silly me. Actual San Francisco humpback whales. Yeah, a real passion project for Leonard Nimoy.
How many movies had he directed up to this point?
This is his second one.
Yes.
Okay.
And he did a pretty good job. I will say.
Well, that depends on who you ask.
Well, yeah. The late great Jimmy Martin would be arguing with all of us right now.
Well, that's fine. He hates
hated
fun.
This movie. Yes, hated. Past
Hated
tense.
fun.
He hated fun so much he up and left.
Yep.
I'm allowed to make that joke.
It's been a while.
It's long enough.
Caveat, we're allowed to make these jokes now. Expiration date has passed.
Hey, look, I found him. All right, I'm allowed to make these jokes. Okay.
You know, just recently, the Abraham Lincoln assassination has become funny. So
Only
Just
recently?
it takes a while, but
Yeah.
we, you know.
I
mean,
remember 2 years ago, someone made a joke. I said too soon. So
Yeah.
About Abraham Lincoln?
yeah. About
Listen,
Lincoln.
I'm over here making 9/11 jokes every day. Like, no.
Dang, dude.
I'm a millennial who has suffered many earth-shattering events in my lifetime. And
I'm a millennial, and I don't think I agree with that.
okay, well, Star Trek 4 picks right up where Star Trek 3 left off. Friendly reminder, our ship was destroyed. And our friends are stranded on Vulcan, and movie essentially opens with a court scene, not a very long one, but they are like, we gotta court-martial these guys because what the heck. And while all that is happening, a giant cylindrical probe is moving through space and just messing up everything it passes. It gets to Earth. It's disabled all of the global power grid. It's causing storms. Sun blocked out the sun with cloud cover and making just this ear-piercing wub wub sound.
So this giant phallic object is just going through the universe, ruining things.
Men,
Interesting.
am I
There you
right?
go. There you go. Sums it up right there, folks.
So back on the planet Vulcan, our friends are trying to figure out how to get back to Earth, and they have deemed the bird of prey, the Klingon bird of prey that they have traveled in, the HMS Bounty, which I first read as Jim's Bounty, and I was like, oh, that's very good. But then I saw it's just Her Royal Her Majesty's ship Bounty, which
It's
is
Mutiny
less
on the
fun.
Bounty, which is the reference.
Oh, is that what that a reference is to?
Because they
Okay.
mutinied and stole the Enterprise in 3 and destroyed it, and so now they're fugitives from the Federation. So HMS
breaking the law.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so they are like, okay, I guess we are going. They're refitting the bird of prey to make it more functional to their needs. They are all complaining about the smell, and
Well, naturally.
and I don't know why the Vulcans don't just give them a ship, right?
You think they
Well,
grow
we
on
have this
trees?
Yeah, we have this one, and it could be that the Vulcans could not politically. It's not politically expedient to give them a ship because they are
Technically fugitives.
fugitives, technically. So
Interesting.
Although they are volunteering to head back to their court-martial on their own.
They're to face trial for their actions. We get one last good look at Saavik, who is they don't say it, pregnant with Spock's baby, so she is left on Vulcan to raise Spock's baby, a single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids and never stops. You know,
is that Kirstie Alley?
No, it's not Kirstie Alley anymore.
Okay.
No, she was in 2, and then they recast her. She wanted more money, and they said no.
Oh,
And
but
so
it is the same character.
Same
and it's
character.
Robin
Okay.
Curtis, is that the actress?
Robin Curtis, yeah.
And so she stepped in for 3 and 4.
And so she is left on Vulcan to be a single mother to weird Spock's baby.
She gets a whole minute in this movie.
Always underappreciated mothers.
Yeah.
She's a single mom who works too hard, works 2 jobs, loves her kids, and never stops. So they're heading back to Earth. Everything's going great. But then as they approach Earth, they're getting just like a ton of distress signals. And there's a moment here also where McCoy tries to have a conversation with Spock. And McCoy, so jealous that Spock died, right? He was trying to because Tony, if there's one thing you need to know about Dr. McCoy is he is always just waiting for the warm embrace of death. Like it's all he wants.
It's always around the corner.
It's always around the corner, and he is so eager to greet it.
As he opens his eyes in the morning, is today the day?
Is today the day I die? Nope. Another day? Great. And he's trying to have this conversation with Spock about like, hey, like you have been where no man has gone before. Like, what's that like? And Spock is like, literally, dude, I can't even begin to tell you. It's like when I'm watching an episode of Black Mirror and my husband walks in and asks me to explain it to him.
Well, he's condescending as hell to McCoy because he doesn't mean to be. But it's just like,
that's just how he is.
Well, he's like, McCoy's like, you and I kind of shared something. And he says, well, we did, but we didn't. I mean, I can't talk to you about what it's like to die because you have no frame of reference because you haven't died. So I can't, it'd be too hard to explain.
Speaking of dying, I can't believe I definitely forgot to mention this. The movie opens with the dedication to the members of the Challenger explosion because this had happened before the movie came out. And I was like, wow, what a marker of time this movie is.
A little time capsule there. And before we leave Vulcan, can we talk about one of my favorite scenes in this movie?
With the machine asking him how he feels, and he's like, I don't even know how to answer this.
It's sort of redone in JJ's Star Trek, but it's the computer education program because Spock is relearning everything because
Tony, I don't know if you know this, but Spock in the last movie went through a rapid growth spurt. And he's got nothing going on in the old noggin.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's just barely remembering stuff, but this computer program is teaching him things in a rapid way, so it's very fast, and he's doing great, and he's answering all of these questions. What are the events of 1985 that were significant? And he types them in, and he's speaking some of it.
The year I was born.
And it's all of these really smart questions, and then the question comes up: how do you feel? Is the question.
Oh.
And he's like, and he just stands there. And he turns around and he looks behind him, and his mom is standing there.
Mama Spock.
And says, well, I put that in there because your father programmed all of this stuff, and I felt like maybe something I should put in there too. He says, but
don't forget, you're part human.
Yeah. He says, I don't understand the question. He says, well, you're part human, Spock. How do you feel? And it's just a wonderful moment, between him and his mother.
Allow me to wax philosophical a little bit. Is that even the same Spock at this point? Because if he comes back not knowing anything, he's basically just a husk that has. Well, he doesn't even have the same neural pathways because that's formed as you gain memories as you age. So is he even the same person?
But you mustn't forget, before he died, he transferred his Katra to McCoy, and the whole purpose of Star Trek 3 is getting that Katra at least back to Vulcan, and so they are able to merge. It's real Ship of Theseus stuff, right? Like, is it the same Spock, or is it? Because trust me, I think about that all the time too.
Yeah. And if it was me, my question to everyone would have been, could you have gotten me off the Genesis planet a little sooner? I'm really old.
Come on, guys.
Like,
I could have
great,
been young again.
I'm as old as I was.
I mean, did you see
when
me?
I left.
I was good looking. Did you see me?
I was fit. I was good looking. There weren't as many wrinkles. Nothing was saggy.
Couldn't
Come
get
on.
Nothing hurt, you know?
You wake up every day and it's like something new hurts. Is this going to go away or is this just life now?
So they're heading back to Earth to face the consequences of their actions. But while they're on their way there, they are just like bombarded with like distress signals, right? And Spock's daddy came up with a brilliant idea because he's on Earth when all of this is happening. And he comes up with a brilliant idea to be like, hey, President of Earth, is it the President of Earth?
It's
Or
Starfleet.
Starfleet?
The president of Starfleet and the president of Earth. Yeah.
They call
go
him
with it.
Mr. President.
They're two different people, aren't they? Starfleet is a separate entity from the government of Earth.
Maybe it is the president.
I'm pretty sure because that's how it was that was 900 years later in Discovery. It was two different organizations. So
The politics of the time.
yeah.
But Spock dad comes up with this great idea to be like, hey, you need to send out a signal that says, do not come here because your stuff's going to get all wrecked if you come to Earth. So on their way there, they get that message from Earth that says, hey, don't do that.
I just looked it up. Federation president.
Okay.
Right.
So not necessarily president of Earth, but
For all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
and so they pick up the ear-piercing wub sound that is being transmitted to Earth, and Spock, through his grand intelligence, deduces, this is if you play it through water, this is what humpback whales sound like. And the thing about the villain, the antagonist of this movie, is I would just love to know more about the why. Because Spock theorizes that the probe was sent by some unknown intelligence that had once been in contact with the whales, and then when the whales went extinct, the probe came to Earth to see what happened.
We lost contact. Why did we lose contact with you?
Took a long time to get there. Didn't they go extinct hundreds of years ago?
Space is a big place.
Yeah.
I don't think this probe had warp drive, so maybe that was it.
And it's very slow moving, just wubbing its way through the galaxy. So they come up with this grand scheme where, in order to save Earth and everybody, they are going to travel back in time, get some humpback whales, and just bring them back to the future. Just like a real quick time travel, get some humpback whales, easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Well, I loved McCoy's question. He says, okay, so you're saying that we go back in time, get some humpback whales, bring them back with us, drop them in the water, and hope they know what to say?
Well, and Kirk says, yeah, that's the plan.
That's the plan.
and I literally took a note that I was like, McCoy only complaining about the plans and never coming up with better ones.
and Kirk points it out. He says, well, that's a crazy plan. He says, well, if you've got one, now's the time. Let's hear it.
And Scotty has this great line too, where he's like, "Oh my God, humpbacked people," and Kirk looks at him like, "Oh my God, whales, Scotty."
It's like we need to build in the bay in the bird of prey. So we need to be able to tank for some. We got to get some humpbacks. People? No, whales, Mr. Scott, whales.
Because Tony, I secretly think Scotty's super duper racist and prejudiced, but it really only comes out when he's drunk or under the influence.
Okay.
But they send a message to Earth saying, "Hey, we're just going to time travel real fast. So BRB, we're coming, we promise. But BRB."
Now, an old person with a quick eye will notice that one of the Starfleet, lieutenants or something that's reporting in on one of the big screens during this scene is Jane Weedland from the Go-Go's.
Oh. Were you in the theater like, oh my God, that's Jane Weedland?
I did. I went. I did the Brad Pitt meme. Hey.
So using the sun, they are going to do a slingshot maneuver. So they accelerate at the sun, warp 10, going as fast as they can, slingshot around the sun, and commences the best time travel sequence I probably have ever seen.
And it's so funny to hear you say that because this sequence is derided just by geeks everywhere as the worst.
Yeah. Listen, I think it's the best ever of all time. Full of irony, right? Like
okay.
it's just, I've never seen anything like it. I want to know. I have searched through, because also Star Trek trivia has pages and pages and pages and pages. I have searched for more information about the origin of this sequence and why they went with this particular sequence.
It's in that Center Seat documentary on the Amazon.
Of course it is.
And the answer is there, and it was just this computer graphic sequence that they came. It was something that was in the script and they didn't think about until the last minute.
It does have last minute vibes.
Yeah, the good part of the sequence is that it features really distorted dialogue of what's going to happen in the movie, lines that are about to appear in the movie.
That's kind of cool.
If you listen carefully,
as heads of everybody, CGI heads of everybody are like coming up out of the horizon and morphing into one another, and then there's a big CGI whale coming at you, and then a man hurtling through space and smoke.
Falling.
It's truly just one of the most incredible things that I've seen. But because all of the power of the ship was used to make that CGI sequence, the ship has no more power. So they make it to 1986. They land in San Francisco. Kirk drops this line, "Everybody remember where we parked," which had me cackling.
Well, you remember they got another reason they took the Klingon ship handy, isn't it? Because it has a cloaking device. So
super good cloaking device.
Invisible to everyone, and they can park in Golden Gate Park, and no one sees the ship. They run into it, but they never see it.
and there's still enough power to run that cloaking device.
Beam, do a lot of beaming everywhere. There's two trash guys, and they're taking trash, and then the ship lands, and they're like, "Did you see that? Nope, I sure didn't." And they just like skedaddle on out of there, making the right choices. And then,
but they all have assignments. They gotta break up the team. They gotta break up into 3 teams. Kirk and Spock are breaking up to go find whales. McCoy and Scotty and Sulu. They need to find a way to make the tank for the whales in the bird of prey. They got to figure that out.
Oh, and Sulu's got to find a way to transport it. So Sulu gets to go fly a helicopter.
And then you got Uhura and Chekhov, who need to find a source of radiation so they can recharge the crystals.
A nuclear vessel.
And so that's their jobs. They each have assignments.
And Spock just really, first of all, I love Vulcan outfits. I think Vulcan fits are just so cool. But he tears off a piece of his and wraps it around his head so it hides both his eyebrows and his ears, because he knows he's got to fit in on Earth, and he just looks like a big karate man. And so conveniently advertised on a bus is the cetacean research facility.
Oh, good.
In Sausalito.
So they make their way downtown, walking fast, moving past, and they're homebound. And
no, Rebecca.
No, it's a great sequence because Spock is trying to. He's like, well, I can use this map to find out where we're at and all of this. And the bus pulls up with the bus board on the side of it. And Kirk says, oh, we can just get on this bus because there's the sign that says Cetacean Institute, see George and Gracie the whales.
That's how it works.
And so they get on the bus and immediately get off. And Spock has so many great humorous moments in this movie.
They're on the bus, and there's the shock of a lifetime, a punk rocker.
Well, they get kicked off the bus first because he says, "What does it mean, exact change?"
Oh, right.
So they have to go. Here. Now, in 2, you remember in Star Trek 2, McCoy gives Kirk some eyeglasses, old antiques.
18th century
eyeglasses, because you're allergic to Retinax, so you have to wear glasses. So they go to a pawn shop, and because they're still using money,
still using money, and they need to get some of that.
Great line in this movie. And so they go to a pawn shop and sell the glasses, and Spock says, "Weren't those a gift from Dr. McCoy?" Kirk's like, "That's the beauty. They will be again."
The time travel.
Using his noggin.
Yep.
So he gets $100 for 18th century eyeglasses.
80s $100 money. It's worth a lot more back then.
I know, that's like $50,000 in 2023 money.
That's right.
Or something.
So then he passes out the money to everybody, and says, all right, there's your jobs.
Here's your allowance.
And everyone stands around looking awkward as hell. And he's like, he's like, please split up. You look like a cadet review.
Even though they're dressed in their disco outfits.
Yeah.
Especially McCoy.
God, yeah. He's looking spunky as always.
Yeah.
But then this is when they get on the bus, and there's a punk rocker on the bus listening to his music loud without any headphones, and everyone's just tolerating it. And Kirk is like, excuse me, young man, can you please turn that off? And he just flips him off, and Spock nerve pinches him, and everybody claps. And this moment, Leonard Nimoy, the best old man of all time, the idea of this was inspired by Leonard Nimoy, who was walking down the street in New York City when a punk came out of a store with his boombox blaring and disturbing everyone around him. And annoyed, Nimoy thought, if I was really Spock, I'd pinch his head off.
Now, I want you to go take a look at the punk rocker on this show. And then I want you to go to your Disney Plus and watch Werewolf by Night. And one of the first guys that speaks is that punk rocker, all grown up. He's playing the part of the guy with the big axe in Werewolf by Night. So look for him. Same actor.
I'm going off of the synopsis on IMDb, and this sentence made me physically cringe. So they go to the Sausalito Museum, and conveniently enough, Dr. Jillian Taylor is beginning a tour, and we're learning all about the whales. And sometimes Spock says things that just makes me go, "Yeah, no shit, dude," because
he's new. Come on, he's
she's
just born
talking
again.
about
he is a baby.
You know?
Yeah, but he says things like, hunting a species to extinction is not logical. And I'm in the bathtub like, yeah, no shit, dude. She looks at him too like, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But they get to the tank with the whales, and they found the whales, and Spock takes it upon himself to get into the tank and do a mind meld with one of the whales. And I'm watching like the Karate Man's trying to ride the whale, because don't forget he's got his bandana on.
Yeah.
The synopsis on IMDb says Spock does a mind meld with the whale and figures out that it is preggers.
Well, he talks to Gracie and
preggers.
He talks to Gracie, and he basically says to Gracie, "Here's what we want to do," and Gracie's like, "Well, okay, I think we can do that."
Yeah, dude.
Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant, just so you know.
But also not a big fan about how the humans are treating us. So yeah. We're down. And they get kicked out of the museum, suffering no consequences of jumping into the whale tank, an endangered species. On their way out of town, Dr. Jillian Taylor finds them, and she's like, "What is your guys' deal? Get in my truck." And they're like, "Okay." And Kirk he writes off Spock's whole attitude and demeanor by saying he was part of the Berkeley in the 60s
free speech movement.
He did a lot of LDS and
I remember that joke.
Absolute narc behavior. First of all, getting it wrong.
Yeah, right.
And of course, Kirk being Kirk manages to charm her, and they go out to, she asks if they like Italian. Kirk says yes, Spock says no, and they continue this. And Kirk is like, "I swear to God, Spock, if you ruin this for me."
You can't block me, Spock. You Spock block me.
Spock block.
If you Spock block me. Name of the episode, Spock
I was
block.
going to say, that's it right there. Don't Spock block me.
And what I love, too, about time traveling Kirk is he's not a liar. He just tells the truth in a different kind of way. So she's like trying to get all these questions out of him, and he's like, kind of. And she's like, are you from Earth? Or he's like, "Are you from space?" And he's like, "No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in space."
He's just so charming, just giving her just enough information to, reel her in a little bit, and then she finally says, all right, come on, tell me the truth. I can handle it, whatever it is. I've heard all kinds of things. And Kirk is like, okay.
I got to take these whales to the future.
I'm from the 23rd century. And
and she's pretty much like, well,
she's from San Francisco. She's okay, yeah, there are weirdos everywhere.
Sounds like you're doing a little too much of that LDS, sir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Scotty and McCoy, they get to a factory where polymers are made, and they're asking the people in charge of the polymers, like, hey, we need XYZ. Could you provide this for us? And they're like, their whole trip to the factory is insane too, because McCoy is a very good heist wingman, because he's like, we set up an appointment with the doctor forever ago, and these guys are saying they have no record of it. And then Scotty is like, oh yeah, can my assistant come? And McCoy is like, do not bury yourself too deep in this role, man. And
but they say to the guy in charge of the plastics plant, how thick would your clear plastic have to be to hold all this gallons of water? And he goes, oh, that's easy. It's got to be
6 inches.
6 inches thick. And he says, well, what if I told you we could do it with just like 1 inch? And he goes, oh, you couldn't do that. It's impossible.
You must be talking about transparent aluminum.
Dr. McCoy says, well, let Mr. Scott use your computer, which, great
computer
line in the movie.
Yeah,
he's talking at the computer.
He grabs the mouse. Computer.
And then the guy is like, use the keyboard. And he's like, keyboard, how quaint.
Then he goes, all right.
Computer.
And he comes up with the molecules for transparent aluminum.
Whips up the formula real quick. And this whole time, I'm screaming at the TV like,
yes.
You cannot do this.
That's right.
Why are you doing this?
You are ruining the timeline.
But then McCoy steps in, asking the right questions. He's like, we cannot just give these guys this formula. And he's like, who's to say he didn't invent it? And I'm like, Scotty, you rascal.
So that
was he drunk
not
right
ideal.
Then? He might have been. He might have
been.
That's what we love about Scotty. You never know. So they make a deal. It says, you get the patent for transparent aluminum, and you make us these sheets of transparent aluminum for free to these specifications, and you're
rich for a lifetime.
Yeah. So it's just again more fun moments with our friends in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And then we, while that is happening, Chekhov and Uhura find the Alameda base where nuclear vessels are held, and they break in there. Uhura manages to get beamed out.
It's the Enterprise. That's the other thing you need to know. The ship is the Enterprise.
The ship is the Enterprise.
And they have a device.
Kirk has a little going, oh, that's so nice.
They have a device that they need to place on the reactor wall to gather the radiation particles in a safe way. And it's going to take a while, so they need to sit down there for a while. And by the time they do get enough radiation, somebody's figured out that there are people on the ship and they shouldn't be. So they charge in.
Just for clarity's sake, when you say it's the Enterprise, you mean the Enterprise aircraft carrier.
Yes, the aircraft carrier.
Not a time-traveled Enterprise ship. No. Just for
anyone
that was confused.
And Uhura manages to get beamed back aboard the bird of prey, but they capture Scotty. And it's 1986 in the United States of America. Not a great time to be a Russian. Oh, sorry, Chekhov. But 1986 United States of America, not a great time to be a Russian.
Especially on a nuclear-powered aircraft
Especially
carrier.
on a nuclear...
Yeah. You shouldn't be here, comrade.
They drop the R word. They call him the R word.
Rusky?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, not that R word.
The other one.
Okay.
But as he's attempting to escape, he gets pretty severely injured and taken to, a medieval hospital. So while all of that is happening, Dr. Jillian Taylor, has told Kirk, like, hey, they are planning on transferring these whales out to the wild in Alaska, and they do not stand a goddamn chance. So if you are going to take them, you need to do it now. And she finds out that they transferred the whales earlier without telling her because they knew she'd make a scene, and she does. And so she runs to the park where the bird of prey is parked, and I love this scene where she's like shouting, Admiral Kirk, and the Hulu's flying the helicopter with the big polymer with the big sheets of transparent aluminum, and sees people coming out of the sky and the things disappearing into the sky. She's like, I know I'm in the right place, and she's like running up, and she runs into the ship.
Ouch.
And she's like, oh my god, they took the whales already, like we have to go get them now. And but also at the same time, we find out Chekhov, he's in a hospital and he's gonna die because his escape attempt.
He's not expected to live. Yeah.
And so they dress up in their hospital finest and break into the hospital, and McCoy's having the time of his life because it is like a medieval museum. Essentially, they pass a woman who he's like, well, what's wrong with you? And she's like, kidney dialysis, and he's like, oh my god, what year is even in it? And he gives her a pill. He's like, take this, call me in the morning. And she grows a brand new kidney.
Like you do.
Wasn't there like an entire episode of this show where they had to make sure that some lady died so that the timeline could be preserved? And they're just going around willy-nilly giving out super scientific formulas and saving people's lives that are probably supposed to die. And
do you think Kirk is like, you mean I could have had Edith Keeler?
Exactly my point. What a wasted opportunity.
That's true.
They find Chekhov, very farcical whoozy-whatsy ensues where they fix him. They lock out the rest of the hospital staff. They fix him. McCoy is like, this is insanity. You people are monsters. And fixes them. They get out of the hospital. They get back to the ship. And Kirk is like, okay, Jillian, bye-bye. This is where we leave you. We'll be able to find the whales because they're tagged, right? And she's like, absolutely not. Take me with you. I've got nothing here. Please take me with you. And I'm like, yes, Jillian Taylor, living my dream. And
that also disrupts the timeline.
And Kirk is like, no. And he starts to beam, and she's like, surprise, and hugs him, and she gets beamed aboard too. And Kirk is like, okay.
Women are so clingy.
Tony.
Well, but as she correctly puts it,
who need me?
Who knows about these extinct species in the future, really? I'm the expert.
It's a valid point. It's a valid point.
Let me help,
And they're like, okay, fine. And Jillian is going to be the subject of a podcast in 30 years. I can guarantee it. The mysterious disappearance of Dr. Jillian Taylor.
Oh, I've got Jillian Taylor's future for you at the end of this show.
So they find the whales. They are, of course, just about to get whaled by some Finnish whalers.
Wait, what? I thought they were being transported to the wild.
Yeah, where they are at risk of being hunted by whalers.
Oh, I thought you meant handed over to some Finnish whalers, like directly. I was like, geez, San Francisco
pretty much.
Aquarium. That is rough. Taking them to the whale farm where they'll live out their days, happy on the whale farm.
No whale farm. It is, they are on their own out there. And like they have literally been there for 5 minutes, and a whaling ship is like, ha ha ha, fresh meat.
Someone tipped them off.
So, spoiler alert, they get them. Hooray! They get the whales. They go back to the future with a lot heavier of a ship. But by the time they get back to Earth, and remember, it is chaos on Earth right now. So their ship just loses power, comes down in the San Francisco Bay. They are like trapped. They're drowning. Kirk does the heroic thing where he goes under the water. You think he's going to run out of air. He opens up the holes. The whales are out. Everybody's out having a big Star Trek pool party. And then the whales start to communicate with the ear-piercing wub-wub noise. And essentially the mysterious probe is like, oh, our bad, and leaves.
Oh, there you guys are. Well, all right, see you later.
There's a long conversation between the whales and the probe.
The longest conversation. Like, I'm dying to know what they talked about.
No subtitles?
No, just whale noises and the ear-piercing wub-wub.
Lames.
I know. Like, it is like 5 minutes of conversation between them. It's insane. Something cool about this part, though, is when whales sing, they go vertical in the water. And the probe did the same thing. It went vertical.
And when they sleep, they do that, too.
Yeah.
Nice attention to detail. That's cool.
It's kind of cool. Anyway, they saved Earth. All their charges are dropped except for insubordination. So Kirk gets a light slap on the wrist by being demoted from admiral to captain, which feels more like a promotion, honestly, because it's all he ever wants is to be captain of a ship. And so the team back together, they're getting transported to their new ship, and they're like, oh my God, we are going to get just like a piece of junk. Sulu says, I hope for the Excelsior. And Scotty's like, that bucket of nuts and bolts. And then over the horizon, we see the new Enterprise A. And it is beautiful.
Now this is where I pull out my toys, right?
Yeah.
This is not technically Star Trek 4 memorabilia, but I call it that. Can you see what this is?
That's a drone.
It's a drone.
Oh my God.
Shaped like the Enterprise. It actually flies because the body half is styrofoam, so it's like weighs nothing.
Oh.
Got those propellers.
But it's Enterprise A.
Oh.
So my Enterprise drone is the Enterprise A. So that's my
It's got a gorgeous new bridge. The bridge is all white and bright and shiny. Love to see it.
Smells like new ship.
That's got that new ship smell. And we're off to go sailing across the universe like they do. And whales are now on Earth. Again.
And now we have whales on Earth, and Dr. Jillian is there.
Living my dream, honestly.
Now, here's some people write fanfic about Spock and people like that. Leigh and I, back in '89, I think it was, decided that, and we decided this on a trip to California with one of my girlfriends. It was her Jeep, so, we went down to Disneyland. This is where I got Leigh over his fear of roller coasters on this trip. But one of the things that we did as we drove was we worked on kind of we couldn't decide whether it would be a script or whether it was going to be a book. I was leaning toward script because they're easier to write, frankly. But we decided that we were going to write a Star Trek story. And what we decided is that, and I said it, I want to include a lot of, at the time, modern music in it. I want bands like Nirvana. I want things like that. I think that I want that in a Star Trek.
What year was this?
89, right in there.
Okay.
And so I was drawing from my radio experience, and I'm like, that's what Star Trek needs is rock.
Little did you know.
Maybe just a little bit of the Beastie Boys.
I was going to say.
Exactly. Hey, look, I tell you, Leigh and I wrote the Orville, we wrote the JJ verse, we wrote it all in this one trip. So one of the things that we wanted to do is that we realized Jillian would be the best bridge for that because she's from the 80s, and she would miss the music then, because
introduce it to them.
These people in the future, that's like old classical music. They don't know, but they're
only listening to stuff like "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" and stuff.
Exactly.
Non-licensed.
She was raised. She was raised in this stuff, so
Public
she would
domain.
miss it. And she had a son. We couldn't decide whether it was Kirk's kid or not. We figured it wasn't. But she had a son who, raised by a woman of this era, was raised around music and loves music. So he was the star of our show, our book.
Plot twist, Scotty was the dad.
I like that, actually.
I mean...
And because it takes, the story we were doing takes place in sort of the Next Generation era, that meant that there were holodecks. And so he was able to go into the holodeck and say, yeah, we just saw Nirvana at, at this show, or we went to see this other band,
You are basically describing stuff you'd see on the Orville.
Yeah. The stars of our show were not the bridge crew. Again, lower decks. We saw this coming. The highest ranking person on our show was the doctor. We had a doctor. Mm-hmm. And the nemesis, well, maybe he was the highest ranking. He was the first officer. And we decided that it was going to be the character that you saw in Star Trek 3, Miguel Ferrer's character.
Okay, because you had mentioned that previously.
And what we wanted to do is just say, all right, Miguel Ferrer, you just be that guy from RoboCop, but that's you. Okay, and that's your character. And here's the funny thing is that he's in the Federation, but he's a xenophobe. He's a racist. Mm-hmm. So we made him, and basically what it was MASH in space. He was Frank Burns.
Oh,
our doctor was Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Our character that was Jillian's kid was BJ essentially, and then it was Lower Decks essentially. So, you'd only see the captain once in a great while. Did
you have a Klinger or a radar?
It was a droid.
But what was he based off of, Klinger, or was he based off of radar?
Radar. It was definitely radar. Yeah.
Okay.
But
radar's cooler.
But we had all these strange characters, and we always said Star Trek needs humor. And then Seth MacFarlane was a baby when he heard this.
Across the brainwaves in the earth,
and said yes, Star Trek needs humor, and that's why when I saw the Orville, I called Leigh and I said they did our show. They took our show.
Here's the thing. I'm a very firm believer of if you have an idea and you don't do anything with it, that idea will leave and go find someone who will.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that.
The other thing about this movie, it has my second favorite line of dialogue in any Star Trek. My first being, "What does God need with a starship?" That's next episode, kids. Star Trek V. But this one is my second favorite line of dialogue in any Star Trek. "Not now, Madeline."
That's the whole line?
Yes, it's so strange and out of place. It's the strangest thing because they're huddled in that guy's office where they're doing the transparent aluminum thing. And for some reason, he's wearing a badge that says, "I quit smoking." It's never explained.
Well, it explains his attitude.
He's just proud about quitting smoking.
But they're huddled over a table talking about transparent aluminum. They suddenly show the office door opening, and in walks this woman who has 2 cups of coffee.
Not now, Madeline.
And something in her mouth. And he yells at her, "Not now, Madeline." And she's like... And she I'm sorry.
Obviously, he knows she's a troublemaker.
Sorry, Dr. Nichols.
She was going to just stir the pot in there.
I'm like, I want Madeline's backstory. What happened there? What?
Get the frick out of here, Madeline.
And I thought I was the only one. But go online and Google "Not Now, Madeline." There's a bunch of people out there who feel the same way that I do.
Not now, Madeline truthers.
Madeline,
speaking of favorite lines, James Doohan once cited "Admiral, there be whales here" as his favorite Scotty line.
There be whales here.
There be whales here.
Yeah, honestly, you guys trivia for this movie not as exciting as some of the other movies.
Could it be because it's more well known? I mean, this Star Trek movie is more well known than just about any of them.
That's insane to me.
I know, right?
You can get a "Not Now, Madeline" T-shirt.
I told you.
And on the back it says "Kirk is a jerk."
That would be fantastic. But yeah, you can actually get a "Not Now, Madeline" T-shirt. It's just a black T-shirt with big white letters, "Not Now, Madeline!" exclamation.
And you could wear that and no one would notice. But then one day,
you'd get
you're
the one
walking
guy.
this way and the other guy's walking
and
the other way.
And there's a guy like, "Not now, Madeline!"
And he'll point and he'll go, "Yes!"
I was taking my dog to a self-serve dog wash yesterday, and on our way there, I was stopped at a stoplight, and I saw a guy wearing a Star Trek like a jacket, like red on top, black on the bottom, zip up, had the Delta on it, and I was like at my window, like, "Hey, friend,
I know you. I'm one of you. I'm a member of the church.
I like your jacket." Let's some bits of trivia. They invented transparent aluminum in 2009, which ironically, when JJ rebooted Star Trek.
There you go.
Gene Roddenberry was initially pleased to hear the film would be a time travel story, as he had been pushing for such a plot line in one of the films. He had long wanted a story in which the crew traveled back in time in an attempt to stop the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But Harve Bennett felt that such a story would be anticlimactic, with the audience knowing such a historical event could not be undone.
That's fair.
Yeah. That didn't stop Stephen King, though.
I was going to say, unless you give a really compelling reason that's interesting of why it has to happen, that could be fun. But yeah, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
They're going to lose.
Leonard Nimoy provided the low wub 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 sound that the probe makes. Sound effects editor Mark Mangini had come up with several possible sound effects, none of which Nimoy liked. And finally, he asked, "Well, what do you think the alien probe should sound like?"
I don't know, just a wub 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 wub.
He thought for a moment, then did a vocal impression of the sound he thought the alien probe should make. Mangini said, "Okay, let's use that." And Nimoy stepped into the recording booth, did a 2-minute voice recording of the sound. Mangini took the recording of Nimoy's voice and mixed it with the electronic feedback and whale songs to make the alien probe sound.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Ew. That sound.
Oh, it is. God, I hate it a lot. According to Leonard Nimoy, about 95% of the humpback whale footage in the final cut was man-made models and effects.
Yes.
Some of the shots of the whales were, in fact, 4-foot-long animatronics.
Yes.
4 models were created, and they were so realistic that after the release of the film, the U.S. fishing authorities publicly criticized the filmmakers for getting too close to the whales in the wild. The scenes involving these whales were shot in a pool underneath the parking lot at the Paramount Studios. The shot of the whales swimming past the Golden Gate Bridge were filmed on location and nearly ended in disaster when a cable got snagged on a nuclear submarine and the whales were towed out to sea.
Whoops.
Wow.
Now, another thing in this movie, another great special effect in this movie, is the William Shatner underwater action toupee.
Oh my God! Can we please talk about the toupee?
How do they get it to stick?
His hair. Oh, his poor hair. His poor hair in this scene. I was like, "Oh, they're not doing you any favors, friend." Ooh.
Oh, he thought it was a great idea to prove that he wasn't wearing a toupee, and it's true. In his older years, he didn't have a toupee. He had the plugs. He had hair stitched into his head, and that's what you're seeing, and you can see the pattern of the stitching as he goes underwater. You can see it's in proper lines. Instead of just randomly like most people's hair, it's in lines, and you can see it. So that's the underwater action toupee.
Oh, yeah. I just found it, pictures of it on a website called shatnerstoupee.blogspot.com.
Is that domain available?
No, it's in use, obviously.
No, Blogspot, but is like the...
Shatner's toupee.
Just straight shatnerstoupee.com. Toupee.
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 Yeah.
Let's see what GoDaddy has to say.
Shatner's toupee.
Rebecca's going to add this to her collection if it's available.
Oh, okay. Shatner'sToupee.com is taken. But I could get Shatner'sToupee.org for $9.99 a year.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, but you're not an org.
The latest post on this from October 13th, 2021. Special coverage of the first toupee in space.
Oh,
when he went up on Blue Origin's rocket.
There you go.
Yeah, I could get a lot of variations of Shatner's Toupee. .fyi, .ai, .shop.
.tv.
Oh, maybe.
That's close.
Right. .biz. Shatnerverse.com is available for $700. Anyway.
A pittance.
Anyway.
A pittance.
That's Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. What do we think? Best movie ever?
No.
I love this movie. I honestly, I love this movie because there's so many moments with our friends in the office. You know, that's a recurring theme here on the Space Show, Tony, is we like to see our friends interacting in the office. Just being
we like to see our friends doing stuff. There's a moment where they first get like hearing all the distress signals, and Uhura's like, "Oh, it is a mess," and Kirk's like, "Well, can you figure out?" She's like, "Oh, give me a minute, I'll try." And I was like, I really like that just little Uhura moment where she shows that actually she does do stuff, right? Because a lot of times she just sits there and says, "Oh, I have someone on the line for you, Captain." But this actually shows her like doing stuff with signals as they come through.
Nice.
I remember liking this movie. I don't remember loving it. I definitely don't remember hating it. I enjoyed it when I watched it a long time ago. So, well, you know.
Yeah, and I think,
movie.
You know, I've got the rose-colored glasses on because next week we're talking about Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which I have already watched. And
you don't have rose-colored glasses on. You have rose-colored welding goggles on. I mean,
I have rose-colored retinas.
Yeah, exactly.
If I see anything Star Trek related, I'm like, it's great.
Just like, ooh, I love it.
Well, and 5 is the one that that we hardcore geeks fight over, and I'm usually in the minority
because you liked it.
Because I liked it. I thought there were some great moments in there, and I just enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, I know that there's some terrible stuff in it, but there's enough good stuff in it to make me go, no, that's noteworthy. It's not the worst Star Trek movie. Nemesis
You
is.
go climb a rock. I'm a big William Shatner fan, and so this was
this is the one directed by him, huh?
Yeah.
Directed by him. He's the star of the show.
You know what?
He fights God.
If you'll have me, I'm going to watch this one.
He rock climbs. Please join us.
And I will join you
church.
Next week.
We'll even schedule it on Wednesday to make sure you're available.
I am available Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
Oh, cool. Sweet. Well, okay, we'll figure out the timing.
Yeah.
Just one last thing before we wrap this up. Once again, want to shout out Pieman Graphics on Etsy. He's the one who made all those fun Space Show vinyls. He is going to put the Space Show vinyls up on his website, and so they are available for purchase. And I believe, I don't know if he's doing it with all Star Trek stuff, but at least with Space.
He's doing it with Geekshow and Space Show. So. Yeah.
Oh, with Geekshow and Space Show. So anything related to those two properties, if you buy any of his items from his shop, those proceeds will go to our friend Leigh George Kade.
Oh, awesome.
And he will donate those proceeds to his Venmo. And if you are also interested in donating towards our friend Leigh's Venmo, at Obli1Kade, you'll see it on our socials. We've been sharing it on our socials. But, consider donating if you can, because hospital bills in America are a bitch.
It's crazy. The QR code for his Venmo, and again, this money goes right to him. There's no middleman or anything, is on our I know it's on our Facebook and our Twitter. I think you put it on our Instagram. So go there and donate. And it's not just this is going to be a while, folks. He's got a long road to recovery. So, every little bit helps along the way. So thanks for giving.
Yeah, thank you. Especially, as we day of recording, the day before Thanksgiving. So thank you, everybody. I'm grateful for Star Trek.
Did that hurt? It looked like it hurt.
Yeah.
You know how she is with emotion. It's
yeah, except she talked about how much she cried during Spider-Man 2 in our early recording last week.
On our Patreon, we have a recording where Tony and I talked about Spider-Man 2. And there were just some scenes in there where I just sobbed like a baby. Okay, well, thanks for listening, everybody, or watching if you're watching on YouTube. And join us next week for Star Trek V, the Final Frontier. And until then, we'll keep going where no man has gone before, but a lot of men have gone before. Thanks, everyone.